What's going on? Same old, same old. Eh? We are all back, right? For more Fat Electrician. And we're doing 43 Mailmen Fight the Germans. And this sounds ridiculous. First Battle of World War II. So this doesn't seem to make sense to be American mailmen. So who's who's mailmen? What's going on here? This seems ridiculous. We're gonna get this rolling. Links down below. Fat Electrician. 43 mailmen fight the Germans.
All right, let me set the scene for you. It's September 1st, 1939. It's Friday, but you've got a job. You've got stuff to do because you're a Polish mailman and you just got to work. So you grab your packages and you set out to go deliver the mail. And right as you step outside the post office, a bunch of armored vehicles pull up full of German SS soldiers and they inform you that you're going to surrender or else. Do you A, surrender, or B, go back in the post office and proceed to get in a firefight with the Germans for the next 19 hours? Today we're talking about the most gangster post office of all time and the first battle of World War II, when 43
Everything's always the most gangster.
with the German SS
I've seen
for
a few
19 hours. But first, a word
of
from
the
our
most
sponsors. This video is
gangster
brought to you
this
by
and
my
the
favorite
most
sporting
gangster
goods store,
that.
Shields. They've got over 35 retail locations all across the United States, and if you can't make it to one of these incredible retail locations, they also have an even better online store that I'm going to have linked in the description down below. And of course, our newest sponsor, Zaka
And
Life
America
Bomb.
destroys
USA, 100%
Iran's
organic,
Navy.
full spectrum CBD balm that you can put on
Some of the
any
good
inch,
ones
any
are
sprain,
whatnot
or
I have
injury. It's
seen
gonna
are.
make it immediately feel better. This is one of the few times that I've actually approached a company to rep their product and not the other way.
I mean, they all seem
Because I
good.
actually
Some of
use
the
some
more
stuff, okay? I'm
popular
30,
ones
I'm
I have
fat,
seen.
I've been doing construction for years. Things hurt. This makes it not hurt. So if you're in the same boat as me, go ahead and give this stuff a try over at ZakaLife.com. Use the discount code FAT5 to save some money. Let's get back to the video. All right, important background info. This is the German Empire before World War I. Got it? Okay, great. This is the German Empire after World War I. Notice how Poland cuts it in two, and at the very tippy top of Poland there is the free city of Danzig. Okay, what is a free city and why does that map seem to imply that it is its own country? Well, because basically it is. It is its own sovereign entity with its own passports, its own currency, and its own form of government. You see, at the end of World War I, when they were negotiating the Treaty of Versailles, both Germany and Poland really wanted dominion over the city of Danzig because, as you can see, it's built on the coast of a perfect geographic harbor. This made it a major port city and an economic powerhouse, which is why Germany and Poland were both fighting over it, and they were fighting over it for so long that it would end up holding up the entire Treaty of Versailles. And finally, the League of Nations stepped in and they're like, hey, okay, well now neither one of you are going to get it. It's going to be its own sovereign entity, its own little thing, whatever, we don't have time for this, moving on. So the Free City of Danzig was founded in 1920. However, considering that pretty much the entire population was either German or Polish, Danzig decided that they were going to grant a bunch of extraterritorial properties to either country, and one of those properties would be the Polish post office, which was just that, sovereign Polish territory. And that's pretty much all the background info you need. So fast forward to April 1939, things are getting real tense between Poland and Germany. Hitler's been in power for the last 6 years, the Nazi movement is well underway, and for the last was just that, sovereign Polish territory. And that's pretty much all the background.
Sorry. Look at the little brick trannies. You guys skateboard, ride BMX bikes, anything? Look at those trannies.
Info you need. So fast forward to April 1939, things are getting real tense between Poland and Germany. Hitler's been in power for the last 6 years, the Nazi movement is well underway, and for the last couple of years, a ton of hardcore Nazis referred to as the brown shirts have basically been trying to intimidate Polish people to move out of Danzig so they can reestablish it as part of Germany. Poland, seeing this, decides, hey, they might try something soon on our extraterritorial properties, so we're going to take a single army combat engineer by the name of Konrad Gudurski. We're going to send him over to the post office. He's going to help fortify that position and teach all the mailmen how to fight. That way, hopefully, they'll be able to hold the post office for like an hour or two while the army has time to get in there and defend it.
So the postmen were already kind of soldiers in a sense. At least trained up a bit. But potentially more or less soldiers and fortified the post office.
Conrad shows up at the post office. He's got a bunch of pistols, some carbines, a couple of crates of grenades, and 3 Browning 1928s, which as you can see is just the Polish equivalent of the American BAR. At this point, there's 56 people working at the post office.
That still didn't seem like a whole lot to defend with.
Conrad explains the situation, says he's taking volunteers for who wants to be part of the security force in case shit goes down. 42 people volunteer. He then begins training them and giving them a battle plan, and everybody else is just going to go run and hide in the basement if anything does go down. So for the next 4 months, Conrad is both training the mailmen and building up fortifications. He ends up establishing one of the mailmen as the second in command, and that is Alphonse Flizakovsky. All right, fast forward September 1st, 1939. It's Friday. All the mailmen show up. They start getting their packages together.
Not soldiers, patriots of Poland that were mailmen.
And while they're all in the post office getting ready to go out on the routes, 180 German SS soldiers roll up with 3 armored cars equipped with 20mm guns and cut the power to the building. Okay, it is like 4 o'clock in the morning and the German military just rolled up and cut the power. The mailmen are like, oh, we're doing this. All right, so they go, they get their guns, they head up to the second story and stick their guns out the window pointed at the Germans. And it is now a complete standoff between the German SS and the Polish post office. So they're having this military grade standoff, and then a bunch of civilians start showing up, like newspaper journalists and radio stations, and people are breaking out cameras and they're recording, and then just a giant mass of civilians shows up to watch. And as it turns out, they've all been invited by the Nazis to come and bear witness to the great German military retaking the city of Danzig. So once they all show up and get the cameras up and rolling, then the head of the...
That's kind of like some Roman gladiatory, the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum type shit. but like traveling. Like man, it's not funny.
The SS walks forward and makes an announcement to the front of the post office, basically saying, hey, why don't you guys just come out and surrender, give this post office back to the Germans that you stole it from. Clearly he was anticipating that a bunch of mailmen would just surrender, turning over the post office completely intact, making a great piece of propaganda for the Nazi war machine, showing that the Polish were just surrendering at the mere sight of the great German army. But what he got instead was 43 Polish mailmen that responded with,
go fuck yourself.
So now the leader of the SS is absolutely furious because his little publicity stunt just backfired, and now the Polish mailmen are making him look bad. So he's absolutely going to attack. But here's the thing. He has to attack and try to preserve the post office itself to not destroy the building, because that's the whole point. They're trying to reclaim the city, not destroy it. But then nothing happens for like half an hour. It's still just a standoff, and the Polish mailmen are like, are we fighting or not? What's happening here? Are we just going to stand here all day pointing guns at each other? What's the deal? So they waited, and they waited what felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was only half an hour, because at 4:45 a.m., there would be a huge explosion off in the distance, and that explosion would be the guns of the German battleship, the Schleswig von Holstein, firing on a Polish military outpost. And these are the first shots of World War II, officially starting the invasion of Poland. This would also be the signal for the SS to begin their attack on the post office as they open fire. Here's the thing with that. The mailmen were inside of a brick building on the second story with machine guns, and the 180 Nazis were standing out in the middle of the street with 3 armored cars. So as soon as the Polish defenders opened fire with their BARs, the Nazis realized that they had made a strategic fucking error, as all of them frantically ran, and all 180 of them tried to hide behind these 3 armored cars. So now all the Nazis are pinned down behind these 3 armored cars, and the 3 armored cars turn their turrets with their 20mm guns and begin firing on the front door, trying to break it in so that all the soldiers can rush into the building. So the mailmen, realizing what they're doing, they grab their rifles, their grenades, and their BARs, and they run downstairs and set up firing positions behind the service counter of this post office, as all the guns are just aimed at the front door, waiting for the Germans to break through it and rush in. Okay, do you understand what I'm telling you right now? World War II literally started off like a shitty joke. 180 Nazis walk into a BAR. So the Nazis finally blow open the front door, and 10 of them come running inside, to which the
and they get lit up.
You've got mail.
That's where it does seem like they have a good defensive position. Other than at some point they're going to need like reinforcements or some backup, potentially.
4 of them are killed immediately and another 6 are wounded as the entire German advance
Resupply ammo?
and they turn around and are forced to retreat as they come to the painful realization that the Polish mailmen are quite literally hitting their birth certificates with the return to sender stamp. Now, to be completely fair, there's another battle happening at this exact moment in Danzig over in the naval shipyard. However, it is entirely within the realm of possibility that these 4 Nazis were the first men to die in World War II, and it was from mailmen with machine guns. As soon as the initial wave of Germans fell back, there was a huge explosion on the other end of the post office.
Mailmen drew first blood.
Off running towards it with nothing more than his pistol and some grenades. As he gets there, he turns the corner, seeing that the Germans had blown an enormous hole in the brick wall of the post office, as he begins throwing grenades into an entire platoon of Germans attempting to advance on him before being gunned down. Conrad was credited with killing 4 Germans with those grenades and giving the postmen just enough time to get to that position and defend themselves, again driving the Nazis back and forcing them to retreat. And again, we don't know this for sure because there's another battle happening at this exact moment, but it is entirely within the realm of possibility that Konrad Gdarsky has just become the first man to give his life fighting against the Nazis. With the Germans retreating and Konrad Gdarsky down, the second man in charge, Alphonse Flizikowski, rises to the occasion and begins instructing all the other postal workers what to do, getting them back into a fighting position, anticipating a third attack. But the Germans are so mad and so embarrassed that their publicity stunt is failing this bad that they don't want to risk it, and they decide that they're going to call for backup. Bear in mind, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning right now, and the Germans wait 6 hours until they can get reinforced by the regular German army, and they can show up with artillery. They had to show up with 2 75mm field guns and a 105mm gun just so they could bombard the entire post office. So they start bombarding the post office with fucking artillery and then send in another attack, and they're still pushed back yet again. With German command having no idea what to do, they just start using everything they have. They get mortar teams out there, and the mortarmen start trying to drop mortars on the post office, but they're so inaccurate, they end up posing more of a threat to the Germans than they do to the Polish mailmen. So they have to call off the attack, they issue a 2-hour ceasefire, and tell the Polish guys, like, hey, you got 2 hours, think about it, you should probably just come out and surrender. Over the next several hours, the Germans would dig underneath the wall of the post office and plant 1,200 pounds of explosives. The Germans would then blow an enormous hole in the post office wall as they rushed in to ambush the mailmen. But the Polish mailmen refused to surrender as they retreated back to the basement where there was one way in and no way out. And yet again, the Germans have no idea what to do from here because the Polish mailmen are just sitting at the bottom of this staircase with 3 Browning machine guns waiting for them to try to come get them so they can gun them down. And the Germans have no idea how to proceed. At this point, the German commander comes to the realization that these mail carriers are not going to quit defending their post office as long as there is a post office.
Well, is it a different type of warfare than the time period is normally dealing with that type of entrenchment into buildings like that, especially basements? That seems not like the typical outdoorsy ish fights of the day.
Office to defend, and he is just going to get rid of the entire building altogether as he orders the Danzig Fire Department
That's
to begin
American.
flooding the basement full of gasoline. The mailmen
Just
immediately recognized
bomb the
smell
shit
and
out
began
of it.
evacuating the basement as quickly as they could, but not before the gasoline would be ignited by a grenade, killing 3 of them before the rest could escape. With the building burning and nowhere else to go, many of the postal workers decided that they wanted to surrender, but Alphonse Flizikowski and 5 other men knew that if they surrendered, they would not be treated well by the Nazis. So they decided that they were going to try to run and escape. The other 36 mail carriers decided to surrender, leaving the building under a white flag. The Germans immediately shot and killed the postal worker that was carrying that white flag and took the remainder as prisoners. Of the other 6 postal workers that escaped, Alphonse Flizikowski and 1 other would be captured the next day on September 2nd, as the other 4 would actually escape and get away. This would bring the total count of mail carriers that were captured to 38. Over the following days, 10 of them would die in the hospital due to injuries they sustained during the battle and during the fire. The remaining 28 were then declared illegal combatants by the Nazis, and they were all sentenced to death. This decision would later be declared a war crime because these men were not illegal combatants. They were trained and led into battle by Konrad Gdarsky, an active and serving military officer in the Polish military. Under his command and the command of Alphonse Flizikowski, 43 mailmen went toe-to-toe with 180 German SS soldiers.
So it would have been illegal for normal citizens to fight back and only legal for soldiers. Is that did I catch that right?
He shot and killed the postal worker that was carrying that white flag and took the remainder as prisoners. Of the other 6
That
postal workers
seems
that escaped,
ridiculous.
Alphonse Flizakovsky and one other would be captured
As
the next
a
day on September
law
2nd,
of
as the other
any
4
of war.
would actually escape and get away. This would bring the total count of mail carriers that were captured to 38. Over the following days, 10 of them would die in the hospital due to injuries they sustained during the battle and during the fire. The remaining 28 were then declared illegal combatants by the Nazis, and they were all sentenced to death. This decision would later be declared a war crime because these men were not illegal combatants. They were trained and led into battle by Konrad Gdarsky.
But like, if they like, see, that's still, it's just a Nazi. What?
An active and serving
Nazi?
military officer in the Polish military. Under his command and the command of Alphonse Flizakovsky, 43 mailmen went toe-to-toe with 180 German SS soldiers reinforced with artillery and armored cars. 8 of them would die in combat, taking with them 10 Nazis and injuring 22 more. And those are just the official numbers from the Germans, which are most likely understated due to their extreme embarrassment. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go check out thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang. Out.
Amazing as always, Fat Electrician. Such a great storyteller. Polish, putting it down in the beginning there. That is ridiculous. And the aspect that if it was not, if it was citizens just doing that, it was maybe a war crime, a legitimate war crime. I don't know. That seems very fucked up of a law rule. Anyways, though, till next time, y'all take it easy. Tit owl.